believe in destiny, that even the powers of time can be ordered to a single purpose? The luckiest man who walks on this earth is the one who finds true love?
You fair Maynard. I thought she was lost. We're to be married as soon as I return. Are you married, Count? Sir, are you married?
I was married once. Ages ago, it seems. She died.
Oh, well, I'm very sorry.
She was fortunate. My life at its best is a mystery. She will no doubt make a devoted wife and you a faithful husband. Come, right now, my friend, to your firm and to any loved ones, and say that it should please you to stay with me until a month from now on.
A month? Do you wish me to stay so long?
I will take no refusal. If you've heard that conversation before, you'll note from the 1992 film Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. In the scene, Gary Oldman's Dracula meets Keanu Reeves' very unconvincing British Jonathan Harker in a scene that's overtaken by Reeves' dreadful British accent. If that scene gave anything away, it's that this week's theme of the Fantasy Football podcast is vampires. Do you have much knowledge of vampires in films and TV shows, David?
Not especially, but I did used to like watching Buffy, so prepare for a few picks from there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if maybe try to have a Buffy starting 11, but I mean, you could get a few in there, surely.
Okay, so I've got to re-pick some of my players then, but.
Okay, should we go straight in and pick the manager, say?
Yeah, why not? Do you have a good option? I'm looking at the options I've got, and I'm not sure mine are any good for manager.
Yeah, it's a weird one, really, because you'd think for like a character that's known for being so clever and cunning, a lot of them seem to be cut out for sort of outfield positions and maybe not managerial positions. But, I mean, I don't know. I think in my head, as much as it's kind of an easy win, I do kind of feel like maybe just Count Dracula himself would be the best option, maybe.
It does seem sensible.
It's the easy option, but that doesn't mean it's the wrong one. It's tough because there's also a few different versions of Dracula. Obviously, there's like the famous Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee Draculas, or there's the Francis Ford Coppola, Gary Oldman Dracula, or the Claes Bang Dracula from the BBC series. But I don't really know if we could even pick, so maybe we should just stick to it being Dracula as manager, and people can interpret that however they want.
Yeah, have whichever. I mean, I suppose if we've got Dracula in somewhere, we probably can't have him later on anyway. So
yeah, it's tough because otherwise we could have like a back four of Draculas if we wanted to. But maybe that'd be a bit too kind of that would seem like a bit too easy for us.
Yeah, pick your favourite Drac.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
I mean, as for formation, we may decide this as we go along. But I mean, is it too bad to use the pun of needing a lot of wingers?
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
I mean, it's just ideal, isn't it? Surely they're going to be playing on the wing. We're going to have maybe we'd pick a formation where we have three at the back, so we can have some sort of like wide midfielders, like proper full-on wingers, and wingers obviously wingers in attack as well. Just as many wingers as we could possibly get.
That's what you're thinking, like 3-4-3, where you've got like the.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I'm game.
Because I feel like it's kind of a common trend for vampires to be very, they tend to be sort of finesse players rather than going for strength. So I feel like a lot of it's going to be based on kind of technical play rather than, bashing into people. I don't think we're going to have a tough. It's unlikely we're going to have a tough defender in my mind, but I don't know what you've got. You never know.
I could start us off with a tough defender.
Yeah, go straight in the defence, do the back three if you want.
Yeah, so tough defender in my head. So I think Spike from Buffy at the back would be a good shout.
And I'll never know if it was him or not. But he was driving a BMW, so maybe. I
always think if you've seen someone, it's probably them, right?
Yeah, and I mean, what harm does it do to think it was them? Unless it's someone like that would be scary to see, or someone who died years ago. There's nothing bad that can come from thinking that. I mean, I don't know whether he sort of spends time in the Ellesmere Port area, but if he does, I think I've seen him.
Confirmed. Spike lives in Ellesmere Port.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, that's going on his Wikipedia later.
Yeah, we'll make it so. Don't worry. Yeah. I'm on it now.
In terms of other defenders, obviously we need two more. I did actually. It's kind of silly that I sort of ruled out the opportunity to have sort of strong defenders, as I've actually got one in my head already that was really one of the first names in the team sheet for me. I'm not sure if you've played the recently released Resident Evil Village.
I have not.
But I expect you've probably seen one of the key villains in it. There's a lot of baddies in Resident Evil Village, but it's kind of like a trending topic that there's a count, well, which is obviously like ideal for a vampire. But she occupies the main house in the game, and she has three sort of evil daughters that keep attacking you the whole time. And she's called Lady Dimitrescu, and she's absolutely massive in height. But it's kind of become like a trending thing because she's one of them characters people took to like instantly. But I'm just looking up how tall she is actually because she's like ridiculously tall. She's 9'6".
It's probably them, right?
Yeah, and I mean, what harm does it do to think it was them? Unless it's someone like that would be scary to see, or someone who died years ago. There's nothing bad that can come from thinking that. I mean, I don't know whether he sort of spends time in the Ellesmere Port area, but if he does, I think I've seen him.
Confirmed. Spike lives in Ellesmere Port.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, that's going on his Wikipedia later.
Yeah, we'll make it so. Don't worry. Yeah. I'm on it now.
In terms of other defenders, obviously we need two more. I did actually. It's kind of silly that I sort of ruled out the opportunity to have sort of strong defenders, as I've actually got one in my head already that was really one of the first names in the team sheet for me. I'm not sure if you've played the recently released Resident Evil Village.
I have not.
But I expect you've probably seen one of the key villains in it. There's a lot of baddies in Resident Evil Village, but it's kind of like a trending topic that there's a count, well, which is obviously like ideal for a vampire. But she occupies the main house in the game, and she has three sort of evil daughters that keep attacking you the whole time. And she's called Lady Dimitrescu, and she's absolutely massive in height. But it's kind of become like a trending thing because she's one of them characters people took to like instantly. But I'm just looking up how tall she is actually because she's like ridiculously tall. She's 9'6".
That's pretty good.
And as with all Resident Evil games, there's always a character that follows you around constantly for like quite a lot of it. And so whatever you're doing in the game, eventually they'll come towards you, and if you don't get away from them, they'll pick you up and smash you about the place. And she does that as well until you defeat her. Spoiler alert, but I mean, well, obviously.
Well, yeah. To complete the game, you have to beat the boss.
Yeah. So if you don't know that, I'm afraid that's just how every game works. Arguably even in like FIFA, that's how it works. but yeah, but I mean, at 9'6", and she's sort of strong. She's like confident, sort of a good leader because she leads a lot of the baddies in the game. So I feel like, yeah, she's a proper centre back you'd want. Great,
yeah, get her in, Lady Dimitrescu.
In terms of the third option, do you have any other thoughts for that?
Not really. I think I'll come to life further up the pitch.
Okay. We do. I mean, there's one option which is the Kate Beckinsale's character in the film Underworld.
Oh yeah.
Celine's very, very tough and not sort of like physically strong, but very headstrong and sort of athletic, but goes more for strength than sort of finesse traits. So maybe that would be the best back three we could have, I think.
Sounds pretty beefy to me.
I think so. It'd be hard to know who you'd pick as captain, but it'd have to be one of them three.
Surely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, that's defence sorted.
Well, I've got a midfield option. I'm going to put my playmaker out there early. So I've gone for Mona the Vampire from the CBBC show of the same name.
I actually hadn't even thought of that, and I'm such disappointed in myself that I didn't, because like that's like for anyone our age, that's like a staple in childhood television, isn't it?
It's a little girl who imagines she's a vampire and then
Yeah.
imagines she's fighting these beasties. So creativity, right?
Yeah, and it had a
Creative option.
really good theme tune as well.
Oh, fantastic theme tune.
It had everything.
It's a really good show.
So no, it was one of those where you said, I don't think I know anyone that doesn't rate that as a show. So I'd be very upset if anybody didn't like Mona the Vampire. What position would you want to have her in? Proper central midfield or on the wing?
I was thinking centre mid.
Yeah,
It's a
sort
bit
of like kind of like a box to box. Bit of not like particularly strong in attack or defense, but like a bit of everything.
yeah. I mean, she could do a bit of everything. I think.
Yeah,
She's a powerhouse.
type.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pick really for mine because I've got so many options. When I was first picking my team, my sort of selection of players, it was hard. I sort of thought, oh God, I'm not sure if I can even think of many now, but there are so many to choose from. I mean, have you seen the show What We Do in the Shadows by any chance?
I have indeed. The BBC one. Well,
yeah.
It's not BBC, is it?
I think so. Yeah,
Is it?
It's originally like God knows what in America, like
the one with Matt Berry, basically.
Yeah, effectively,
right,
what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shoehorn a Matt Berry character in because I will for any reason possible.
Fine by me.
And I mean that show's just brilliant. And I mean, to be fair, when you look at the cast and stuff, I mean, I love Kay Van Novak as well, so it's very hard to just pick one. But I just really love the Laszlo Cravensworth character played by Matt Berry, and I just feel like that would just be like it's kind of, I mean, you'd probably go as far to say as it may even be like a Soccer Aid pick where where it's not it may not particularly work, but it's kind of like, well, we all need a wild card, and I think there's an episode in the most recent series where he doesn't want to sort of like play along with the other vampires anymore, so he moves to the middle of nowhere and then starts calling himself Jackie Daytona, and he owns a bar.
Yeah,
and he sort of he like calls himself like, I think it's like Jackie Daytona, like average human man or something, and it's like, and people love him for it, and I think he's sort of like a talismanic kind of character. Yeah, so it's just one of those sort of like, it's definitely more of a heart pick than a head pick. I'm definitely going based on, well, I just like him, but I just can't leave him out.
No, fine by me. Where do you want him? Surely because of his propensity to turn into a bat, he's got to take a slot out wide somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Maybe put him as one of the sort of the very wide wingers and sort of like leave some of the maybe quicker wingers for up front.
Yeah.
Have you got any other thoughts for midfield?
So we'll get an unpopular pick out of the way now. I just think it's difficult to talk about vampires in the 21st century without mentioning, at least briefly, Twilight.
Oh yeah, it's kind of, it's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
We can't not mention it. Am I the world's biggest fan of the films? No. Do I think they've got a place in the world? Yes. Should I keep asking rhetorical questions? Maybe. But I would put Edward Cullen in there, and the only reason I've gone Edward is because I feel like he's, he was OG vampire.
Yeah,
he turns up and is a vampire, and I kind of feel like that's fair to give him the slot.
He sort of, I mean, he kind of like, I felt like for 5, well, I wouldn't say, I think 10 years is pushing it, but maybe for up to 5 years at most, people had kind of forgotten about vampires, and that brought it all back, and it also brought a different angle to it. I'm not saying I'm a fan. I've not actually watched any of the Twilight films, so I can't really say anything. But but it gave a new angle to it, and it shook it up a bit. People saw vampires in a different light, a very sparkly light, but a very different light.
Sparkly, sexy light.
Yeah, and really that could have inspired the recent raunchy vampire TV series. There were, because there was quite a few of them, True Blood and Vampire Diaries, and I think that's both of them. But so it's kind of, it's divided opinion, and it's potentially inspired a lot of other media, and also stopped vampires from just being purely spooky.
Yeah.
So fair play to him. He deserves his place.
Just can't work out where he'd go in midfield. I wonder whether he gets a slot on a bit further up.
Yeah, put him on the wing if you want.
We'll put him on the wing. Why not? There you go, Edward. Have your cake and eat it. What?
So you show. So we've got another central midfielder option open, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Yes, I forgot. It's hard to know who to put there. I've got quite a few different options. Have you seen the TV show Being Human?
Yes.
In that, Aidan Turner plays a vampire, and he's sort of quite troubled, but he's kind of, I think again he's brought the sexy vampire thing, and that's me saying it. That's not based on anything anyone else has said. That's me just admitting it. And so I think he'd be quite a good pick in midfield, sort of, like a sensible head to keep things moving.
Yeah.
Because I like Being Human. That was a good show. It probably went on too long, but most shows do.
Yeah, I'm not sure I ever watched it through to the end, but
no, it can't. Well, it's one of those things. Last few series, I don't think anyone's still watching it. But he was very good in it. I know sort of now he's like a heartthrob for loads of BBC shows, but back then he was sort of like, a newcomer, and he sort of stole the show a bit because he was sort of like, he was a vampire that had to suffer through being a vampire for decades, as a lot of the characters do. But you could see that he sort of had that had a bad effect on him, but he still was sort of he was kind of like he was the grounded one of the group for the sake of the group. So I think, as a leader, I think he'd be good in midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're lacking on centre mids, is my feeling. So maybe he drops in there next to Mona.
Yeah, definitely. And he, I mean, let's be honest. Mona the vampire might not sort of always have a head in the game.
Yeah.
But I think she's going to be arsing about a little bit. So maybe he'll probably get her to take it seriously.
So we've got one wide midfielder, one winger, and a striker left.
Yes.
I'm going to throw out an option that I don't think fits in any of those, but I want them in the team.
Go on.
If I said to you, 3 slots remaining, the Count from Sesame Street.
Again, it seems like an easy option, but I actually didn't even think of it.
Well, we've also got goalkeeper still free.
Oh my god, I forgot goalkeeper. Just vampires just don't suit being goalkeepers, I suppose.
Should we just put the Count in goal on the basis that like somebody controls him with their hands? So
that's true. That's a good reason. And to be fair, I do think if you imagine it's the World Cup final and it's gone down to penalties, it's completely up to you to score, because the penalty taken before you by the other team, they missed, and you go up to take the penalty and you're up against the Count from Sesame Street. I feel like that's going to somehow put you off.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no way you take that and don't think twice about how bizarre it is.
He'll be counting all the steps you take as well.
yeah.
One long stride.
So based on that, I think that's a very good goalkeeper pick, actually.
Other option I've got. Have you ever watched Adventure Time?
Yeah, I actually do. I really like Adventure Time. It's one of those things that's just always entertaining and funny and oddly relaxing.
Yeah, I do find it very very chill. So I went with Marceline, the vampire queen.
Oh, that's a clever one. Would that be a wing option, do you think?
I feel like it is, yeah. I feel like she's definitely out wide. Yeah.
And also sort of she can be quite sort of aggressive. So I think it's a different option. Bring something different.
Yeah, we'll get Marceline in there.
I mean, really, for striker, I've just got one in my head that I just can't ignore, and that's Blade.
Yeah.
Because Blade, you could put Blade anywhere, and I think he'd do a job. But I think it's one of those, he's strong and he's quick and he's clever enough to catch people off guard. and I think he'd sort of be like a bit of a Drogba.
Yeah, made for the role, really.
Yeah, solid and strong. So to just I mean, one of them where there's probably a few times he just smacks the ball at the goalkeeper because he's not even thinking, but I think he'd score eventually.
Yeah, happy with Blade up front. Means we've just got one wide midfielder left to go.
It's tough because I've still got a lot of options left. Actually, I may even go through some of mine, just to show how many I've got left. There's a show a few years ago called The Strain, and there was a character called Eldritch Palmer, and he was like an old vampire, but he was played by Jonathan Hyde. He's always sort of a very elaborate actor, so it makes it even better. But he was sort of like he was planning a way to bring back all these sort of ancient vampires into the world and stuff. So he was quite a good character, almost like a manager option, really. Also, both the American and original, I think Swedish version of Let the Right One In / Let Me In. That was quite. They were quite, because they're sort of like the sort of like little kids that were turned vampires when they were children, and they're sort of still alive a long time later, and it makes it really creepy. But I mean, an easy option I think is David from The Lost Boys, played by Kiefer Sutherland. That's a tempting one.
That is a good one.
But I mean, the tough thing for me, also actually, there's another one. The character of Marlowe from 30 Days a Night, who's like in 30 Days a Night, they're in an area they're in Alaska where there's 30 days of sun and then 30 days of night, and during that period, a big gang of like ancient vampires come and rip everyone to shreds, and he's like the leader. And he's really scary because he's played by Danny Houston, who tends to play very like, he plays like lawyers and like, mayors and stuff. And it's really weird because he suddenly plays like a complete opposite character. And there's a bit where there's a woman stranded by herself, and she's sort of begging for God. And he says, he looks her in the eye and says, God, then looks up and looks around and shrugs and goes, no, God. And then like kills her. And it's like the most coldest scene I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
It's really, it's a very bleak film, but it's very entertaining. But actually, I mean, really in my head, the pick that I'd choose personally for this last position, there's a show based on a graphic novel called Preacher. And there's a character called Cassidy, played by Joseph Gilgun, who's like quite he's in This Is England and a lot of things like that. And I'm sort of surprised he's in this show with it being like American. But Cassidy's just like he's a Northern Irish vampire who's sort of been alive for a long period of time, and he's sort of quite scrappy, and he's not sort of like amazing at things necessarily, but he always finds a way. There's a lot of times in the show where he gets blown up or ripped to shreds, and he grows himself back. But he's very like loyal and strong-willed, and he's kind of quite a likable character, but he's also very thin and very tricky. So I think maybe like as a kind of another wide player, maybe that'd work.
Sounds perfect. Sounds like a really good fit.
It's tough though because it's very competitive. I mean, it may be the case that we have to do a part 2 of this eventually.
More vampires. More Vampire Week.
Yeah, that's the dream.
So that's the team. Have we got a name?
I mean, there must be so many puns to do with vampires and Dracula team names, but I just completely forgot and just haven't thought of any. Have you got any?
Here to save the day, I've gone with You Ain't Got No Fangs.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Fangs and fans, you have to put that together. You got no fangs.
Yeah.
For stadium though, I did. I came up with one, but I'm not. It's either terrible or brilliant. I can't really tell. But I was I was trying to get Nosferatu somewhere because we've not included him in the team. So I was thinking of Molinferatu, like Molyneux, but mixed with Nosferatu. Really forcing it in there.
Fine.
Do you have any others?
I have nothing that's going to get near that. That's fine.
Well then, you've got no chance. We'll have to go with that.
Welcome to Molenferatu, where the You Ain't Got No Fangs team, managed by Count Dracula, will be lining up in a 3-4-3 formation. In goal is the Count from Sesame Street, and at the back is Spike from Buffy, Celine from Underworld, and Lady Dimitrescu. In midfield is John Mitchell, Mona the Vampire, and Laszlo Cravensworth, as well as Cassidy from Preacher. Out wide is Marceline the Vampire Queen and Edward Cullen. With Blade lining up front.